Have you ever wondered how many Christian denominations there are? Well, I googled it, and they said 30,000. 30,000 groups of Christians all arguing. But some Christians said, well, hang on a minute, there might be 30,000 denominations, but that doesn't mean they all disagree with each other theologically. Well, I think they've got a point. If you've got a church in South Africa, it may be named and be a different denomination from another church in Canada, but they might believe exactly the same thing. So let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's accept that many of them would have the same doctrines. So let's say 10% of them disagree with each other. That would be 3,000. No, let's be really generous. Let's say it's only 1%. That would be 300 denominations who are claiming that 299 denominations have got it wrong, that they aren't believing the right thing about Jesus. Well, you know, some of those differences are enormous. You know, some people say the Pope is infallible at certain times. Everybody says you've got to be baptised, but is that essential to get to heaven? Some say you've got to be baptised as an adult and that child baptism doesn't count. Some people say you're predestined to go to heaven. Some people say you've got to believe the Book of Mormon as well. Some people say you've got to go to church on a Saturday, not a Sunday, or you won't go to heaven, and so on and so on and so on. Huge differences between all these churches. Well, these of course have grown up over the years. In the early church, of course, everything was peaceful. Everybody agreed and everybody didn't believe the same things. There was schism in the church right from the early days, and I've come across an example of it in Paul's letter to the Galatians. And just let me read a little bit to you. When Cephas, that's Peter, came to Antioch, I opposed him to his face because he stood condemned. Paul doesn't mince his words, does he? You go to his face. So he must have been really angry with him. Paul comes across an angry man to me, and he's speaking to the person that Jesus is supposed to have said, on Peter I build my church. So there was a real fight going on here. Now, but why? Well, I'll tell you why. It says this. Before certain men came from James, Cephas used to eat with the Gentiles. But when James's men arrived, he drew back and separated himself from the Gentiles because he was afraid of those who belonged to the circumcision group. Okay, so there's a big split in early Christianity between those who say you've got to be circumcised and you've got to follow the Jewish laws, and those who say no, you've only got to have faith in Jesus. You don't have to follow those laws. So right at the beginning, we've got fights, we've got disagreements, and how come? These were the people who knew Jesus, who walked with him, who learnt from him. How come they're fighting only a few years after his death about what is the truth? And how on earth can we ever find out what the truth is if they didn't know?
It ain't necessarily so. It ain't necessarily so. The things that you're liable to read in the Bible, it ain't necessary.